This episode is brought to you by the Great Courses Plus. Hey Jogger peeps, so I got another little topic for you guys to pontificate. I recently came across this image by Chris Gray from West Yorkshire depicting his vision for a global metro system. It looks amazing. It has hundreds of different stations on 20 different lines, each reaching a different region of the planet. And it kind of got my gears spinning. First of all, I love trains. I love metro systems. They totally beat traffic. At first glance, this picture, it looks kind of fun, yet a little far-fetched considering that a lot of the lines traverse what seems like impossible boundaries and the entire Pacific Ocean. But what if? What would it take to make this a reality? Well, first of all, this map misses a few countries, especially in Oceania and the Caribbean, and it doesn't go to Antarctica, but that's okay. We can make that happen later. First of all, there's a few things you have to consider. If we were to literally connect every single continent on the planet, it would take a lot of time, energy, and resources to an extent that the world has never seen before. Also, it might be wise to make a lot of these trains hyperloops as to cut down the travel time with long distances, which would also allow more people to travel. Now, the first thing you would have to consider would be diplomacy and permission on which areas to build. If we were to connect North and South America, it's unlikely that Panama would open up the Darien Gap due to the indigenous tribes that refuse to build on their land, so we might have to build over the ocean into Colombia. Man, that one section of land, if it would just open up. Also, keep in mind that unless if some kind of miracle agreement was made, it is most likely that people going to Armenia would only be allowed to board a north-south train line going through Georgia and Iran due to the closed-off borders between Turkey and Azerbaijan. Maybe North Korea would allow a train going in through either China or Vladivostok in Russia, but I highly doubt there would be a simple stopover between them and Seoul, South Korea. That means that if Chinese people wanted to visit South Korea, they would either have to build a really long sea crossing line from the Shandong Peninsula to Incheon, or they would have to take a line through Taiwan and the Yaeyama and Okinawa Prefecture Islands up to Kyushu and then across to Busan. And you get a lot of strange scenarios like that all over. I mean, there's that weird strange thing between Algeria and Morocco, Ukraine and Russia, Iraq and Uzbekistan are just a nightmare, and unless you have the right visa, Belarus would probably just kick you out. Which brings us to the next part. I really like the tactic that this guy had for transatlantic oceanic lines. For North America, he connected Canada to Greenland to Iceland to Scotland, utilizing maximum land crossings at the shortest distance. But with South America, for some reason, he decided to connect Belém, Brazil with Conakry, Guinea. I don't know exactly why he chose those cities. For me, a more reasonable route might be Fortaleza to maybe Dakar, Senegal, or if you want minimal distance, maybe Natal to Freetown, Sierra Leone, with a quick stopover in Ilha Fernando de Noronha off the coast. To cross the Pacific, of course, Hawaii would have to be like the main central hub, and then from there you could go to either Kiribati or the Marshall Islands, or hey, why not both? It's our imaginations! We can do whatever we want! No rules up here! Now, if this map did go to Antarctica, I would suggest extending the Purple America line to Tierra del Fuego, somehow traversing the impossible Patagonia glaciers, and somehow without dying during the construction process, reaching King George Island, and from there it's just a bunch of quick island hops until you hit Graham Land on the Antarctic Peninsula, and just be mindful of building the train on solid ground and not an unstable ice shelf. And there you go. Now the big question. What are all of the factors, elements, and variables that would have to go into the mix to make this become a reality? Well, the answer is insanity. Now, one thing we could consider to alleviate some of the costs is using some of the train lines we already have so that we don't have to build a new one. Now, I counted and it seems like with the exception of some train lines in North America, Europe, Russia, China, India, and Australia, most of these lines actually don't exist. So let's assume we're funding maybe about 75% of all these train lines. That's still a lot. Each line might cost differently based off of the terrain or ease of transport for materials. It would be a lot easier to transport materials over the flat plains of Russia rather than the middle of the ocean by Fiji. Also, are you passing through a rural area or through a city? Because it costs more to build underneath a city. Then you have to consider the labor force. How many people are well equipped with the proper training to construct such a project? How long would it take to invest in the training of people who aren't? Also, you have to consider the hiring of people to mine the raw materials to bring to the factories to shape and mold into the train tracks and the trains themselves. And how many people would it take? And then you have to consider wages. People in different countries get paid different wages. And the oceanic lines, especially the ones crossing the Pacific, would probably cost the most. They would probably have to be hyperloops due to the incredibly long distances, and they would have to be very strong and solid due to the fact that, it's the Pacific Ocean. There's cyclones, there's crazy things happening all the time. They gotta be solid. Oh, and also consider that a transoceanic train has never been done before. Which, by the way, if you didn't know, there actually are some hyperloop companies out there like Hyperloop One or Transpod that are in the alpha stages of capital fundraising and researching. It's so cool. Look it up. I did the math, and factoring absolutely everything I could possibly think of into this whole equation, I came around a number somewhere around either 60 $65 to $94 trillion, although it could be a lot more based off of so many factors that I missed out on. In the end, we live in a time in which air travel is the preferred method of long-distance journeys. However, is that really the best way, and is it the most efficient? Is it possible that ground transportation and Hyperloop technology could bring us into a brand new era of unimaginable global possibilities? What do you think? And what do you think about a global metro system? What destinations would you like to see being built? I personally think a West Coast California, LA to the Polynesian Islands train line would be the coolest thing ever. And with that being said, I have 3 very important announcements. You're going to want to listen to at least one of them. The first being that the Great Courses Plus contacted us and they want to sponsor Geography Now again. Woohoo! For those of you that don't know, the Great Courses Plus is a website with over 7,000 online courses from all across the academic spectrum, taught by highly accredited professors and professionals, many Ivy League trained. They have classes in so many different things like science, weightlifting, chess, art. There's a really cool course called Inventions That Changed the World by Professor W. Bernard Carlson. I recommend it. Right now they are offering a free 1-month trial, or if you really like it, you can even sign up and join for a plan at really good rates. All you have to do is go to this website here, thegreatcoursesplus.com/geography, or you can click on the link in my description. Thanks, Great Courses Plus. You guys are always there for me. You guys rock. My next announcement is that the Heritage trip is completely funded and ready to go and happen in October with me and my mom. Thanks to you Patreon patrons, I was able to buy the flight tickets and have a side budget for other things like trains and food. You made it happen, so thank you so much, Patreon patrons. And finally, my last announcement. As you know, August is upon us, which means the school year will soon begin for all students, which means I want to visit your school. Earlier this year, I got to visit the cool kids at Centennial High School in Corona, California, and now it's time to see more. After the Heritage trip in October, I want to have a geography bee at your school. As of right now, I can only travel in North America as I'll be using my own money to fund the travel costs for me, Brandon, and Ken. It's a little outside of my budget to travel outside of the continent, so maybe in the future if Geography Now gets bigger, but right now I can only travel within North America. And for sure, I have to visit at least one place in Canada. I promised you Canuckies that I would visit before this year is over because I gotta celebrate with your 150th anniversary. I will be holding a contest, and whichever schools win, I will visit. Details will come next week, so stay tuned. In the meantime, thank you for watching this video. I hope you got something out of it. Subscribe if you want, and stay cool. Stay tuned.